Mom, you have 17 gravy boats. 17! And you haven't hosted Thanksgiving dinner in 5 years. Sound familiar? Well, if you've ever tried to help a parent downsize, move to a smaller place, or just clean out the garage that they've been filling since 1967, you know this isn't really about gravy boats. It's about memory, identity, independence, and love, all wrapped up in boxes that you can't quite figure out how to pack or unpack. Today on Always Ageless, we're talking with someone who literally wrote the book on how to navigate this emotional minefield. And that's exactly what it is, an emotional minefield. Marty Stevens-Heebner is the first certified senior move manager in the United States. And her book is brilliantly titled, How to Move Your Parents and Still Be on Speaking Terms. And it is a masterpiece. And we'll be working through it a little bit today. And Marty, back in 2013, was flying back and forth to Buffalo, New York, helping her 90-year-old father navigate his final years. And at the same time, she was caring for her aunt, who was struggling with Alzheimer's. And like so many of us, she found herself thinking, and I've been through this, as have many of you, why is there no one who helps families through this? Why are we all just winging it? So she became that person. She's held a certification in senior mood management. She's professional organizing, aging in place, and even hoarding and downsizing. And most importantly, she's helped thousands and hundreds and thousands of families navigate these transitions with compassion, practical strategies, and a whole lot of heart. Marty, welcome to Always Ageless. It is my personal pleasure to have you here today. I've wanted you on our show for a long time, so thank you for being here.
Valerie, I'm so honored, and what an amazing introduction. I kind of want to encase that in gold. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Well, as I mentioned to you, Marty, offline, we're all kind of going through this too. We happen to be downsizing in our household, and my mom will be 106 next week. And still lives
Amazing.
by herself. It is unbelievable. She still lives by herself, cares for herself, bathes herself, cooks for herself, manages herself. And so the reason she won't go into assisted living is because she doesn't want to give up everything. So,
Yep.
you are preaching to the choir. And when I saw your book come out in the early summer, late spring, early summer, I thought, well, I need this. I need to know how to move my mom and still be on speaking terms, because therein lies the challenge, right?
Right. Exactly. And it's a trick because family, no matter how well family gets along or family members, you're going to butt heads because you're family. It's just what it is. And you're very emotionally tied up in this whole thing. What people really don't realize, our culture as a whole, is that inevitable shift in later life that happens, it's inevitable. I mean, we should all be so fortunate to live that long, and it impacts every generation of the family. I've had grandchildren of my clients crying in front of me, crying in my arms. So yeah,
It's
it
tough.
resonates.
So we want to spend some time today talking about things that I found in your book, and plus things that you and I have both run across as we've gone through life helping senior families, and the things that you've found and your profound thoughts and insights. So let's just start with where you came from, though. You became a senior manager after helping your own father and aunt through their later years. So can you take us back to that time, and at what point did you say there's got to be a better way?
It's interesting. I've been an entrepreneur since the early aughts. And when I was flying back and forth from Los Angeles, where I live now, back to Buffalo, my wonderful hometown, when I was flying back and forth, at that time I had an eco handbag business, and it, for obvious reasons, because I was the DA in the family, the designated adult taking care of my father. Chances are
Great term. I'm going to remember that.
you and probably all your listeners are the DAs and their families too.
Yes.
And so obviously flying back and forth and paying attention to that, the bag business took a huge hit. And so when dad finally passed away at the ripe old age of 90, I basically thought, well, I can go resurrect the bag business, but it's really, I mean, it's just a handbag. And also, it's a really cutthroat business. And I'd also then learned all these amazing things about later life that I found fascinating. From a business perspective, I also recognized how huge the market was and that it was only going to grow. 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day, as you know. So I thought, well, what's a good niche for me? And I'd spent, all those years of the handbag business, basically, keeping track of inventory down to a single unit, doing trade show moves,
Yes.
Atlanta one week, New York the next,
Yes.
Vegas the week after that. And so I realized my skill set was perfect for this profession of being a senior move manager that I discovered. It's a very new newish industry. Our national organization, the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers, NASM, NASMM. NASM it will be 22 years old at our conference next month. And I launched Clear Home Solutions and I just never looked back. It's such a wonderful profession to be a part of.
What was the hardest conversation you had to have with your dad and your aunt? And
What,
knowing what you know now that you've been through this professional life, what would you have done differently at that time?
with my father, this is a do as I say, not as I did moment.
Right.
My dad would start to, especially that last year or so, would start to tell me one of his stories again for the 100th time. And I'd say, Dad, you've told me that already. And at one time he said something like, well, yeah, but I just want to tell it again.
Oh,
And I just kind of rolled my eyes.
oh,
Well, now I get it.
yes.
And we really need to have more compassion for our parents because they know the end is nigh. They know that they're so much closer to the end than the beginning. And they just, while they're here, want to kind of relive that memory in their hearts and in their minds. And that happens by telling it. So let them tell you. Even make a video of them telling you the story.
Yeah.
Because then they'll know that it was like they have passed their memory on to you. Okay, granted, whether you want it or not. Okay, got it. But
That's
still,
true.
but listen to those stories. With my aunt, it was tricky because of course she had Alzheimer's.
Right.
And so we couldn't really share stories, but it was just wonderful to be around her as she was. She was so sweet. She'd forget who I was. And
Oh,
so she'd turn a corner and see me, and I would just stand up. And each time I'd say, it's Martha, your brother John's daughter. And because she still had some long term memory, she'd go, oh, it's so good to see you. Thank you for being here. See her beautiful eyes light up like that and hear her effusive welcome to me a few times a day. And I just started to realize, it's like, you know what? Just focus on that. Focus how I'm getting goosebumps actually. Yes, I'm saying this. Just focus on that, getting to hear that every single time. It's just the disease. That's why you have to reintroduce yourself. So she feels safe whenever she sees you. But then she makes me feel all yummy inside. So
uh,
it's be open to listening to those stories. And when they have dementia, it's hard when you're a family member, but try to remember it's the disease when they're asking you the same thing 12 times in an hour.
when my dad was towards the end of his life, and he lived until 99, and I didn't know, of course the hospital called and said we're going to discharge him. Well, what am I going to do? You have to go find a place, and we took him to a place where they kept him for a few days, and they said your Medicare is up, you have to go someplace else, and we
Oh,
didn't know where to go and all those questions. And I ran into the same thing where I thought there have got to be other kids my age who are going through this same thing, and who's helping them. And that's really when I got my passion for helping seniors. And certainly then my mom and dad's friends started to get sick and ready to pass on, and their kids came to me, and I said, you guys, we don't have anybody to help us. Where is our resource? And I honestly think that, Marty, and I think you've seen this in your work, and we're going to talk about it today, is there's really, I think, two groups. And my listeners have heard me say this multiple times. There's our older family members who we would call elderly or seniors, but then
mhm.
there's us,
The
right?
adult
We
children.
are, that's right. We're the adult children who also need help and resource to go to. And
Yes.
it sounds like from reading your book and how to try to get along with your parents. That's
Yeah.
really, you
It's
recognize that that's an issue.
it's so important. There are so many professionals out there who can help you, all kinds of different services. They're listed in the book. Plus, I'm launching a new venture, a startup called AgeWise Alliance.
Oh,
And part of that website has a glossary of professions, over 80 of them listed
yes.
and defined. So you can just scroll through and recognize how many different people there are there to help you. And that's so important. And one of the things you really need to remember is to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Even if, let's say your siblings don't want to help you, too bad. Don't just say that, well, I'll get it done. They need to help you. They need to help you. And also hire
Higher help.
professional.
Mhm. But I think that people my age, maybe you're younger and you
I'm going to be
didn't have to go
64.
this.
I'm almost 64.
Then
So.
I think we weren't raised thinking that we were going to be caregivers for our parents. We thought that by the time we are the age we are now, our parents might be gone, and we would be retiring and on cruise ships and traveling around whatever we want to do. And instead, our retirement is now as caregivers, and that so much creates so much stress on a family between spouses and families and siblings and all of those things. And I know you've seen that dozens of times.
Oh yeah, and especially at our age, Valerie, like the knees start to hurt a bit, the back hurts, we get tired.
Yeah.
So again, all the more reason to seek help and making sure you get enough rest yourself. It's
Yes.
it's so important. And yeah, adult children don't get sufficient attention. As it is in our culture, no one talks about later life. We know that.
No,
And that's awful. Because
nobody
I
wants
will
to
be
hear
honest with you, Valerie, I won't go into the long story of how this happened, but when I really accepted that there's a finality, there's an end to not only me, but everything. Everything ends at one point or another. When I realized that, like every day I wake up and I'm here, I'm thinking, I'm here. I'm here. I got to,
that.
suck the marrow out of life, as the saying goes.
We need to do that.
So, but also it makes you think about, okay, let me plan for that. Later life doesn't have to be a time that is dreaded.
But no, although we do dread it, right? And it should be, but first of all, we should be considering the stage of someone's life, not their age, rather than generalize people
Oh
by
my goodness,
younger,
yes.
older. Yeah.
Right. Right. And adult children, there's so much stress, especially if you have your own kids, the sandwich generation.
Yes. And many of us are in that situation as well. Read something in your book that's later life moves ripples through everyone and everything it touches. It marks one of the greatest shifts in the life of an entire family. And your book, certainly your title itself, um, relates to that. But isn't that true that later life affects everyone? Like you said, your grandchildren who you hold, and
Yeah, because it's really going to, especially when your grandparents pass on, that's often your first experience with losing someone dear to you. It's a milestone in everyone's life. My mom died when she was only 58, so I had
oh,
early experience with it. I was only 26. Yeah, I remember my grandparents as they started departing and going, they're not there anymore. And we need to get more used to, we used to be talking about it and so on and planning for it in epochs past, but this where we are right now as a culture, we just don't want to talk about it. But there's so much living in later life for people who are older, because even if I go back to my aunt who had dementia. She would still delight in so much. There were all kinds of things she couldn't remember, but she delighted in eating. Like I say,
oh,
when I explained who I was, she would light up. And how beautiful is that? And it's really looking at where the fulfillment is, and there's so much there.
and so great that even in her condition that there was something that brought light to her life and something that brought joy to her life. So let's talk about the call. So the phone rings, that starts it all, and an adult child says to you, "We need to move, mom." What are the warning signs that that family needs help or is going to be in trouble or that it's going to be easy for them?
Okay, moving is never easy. It's the third biggest stressor in life after death and divorce.
Oh, that's
And
pretty
I don't
strong.
call it relocation, it's dislocation. Because I don't care how old you are or how much stuff you have, even if it's just a backpack full of stuff. When you move somewhere else and that other place becomes your home, that's dislocation. And you're going to feel out of joint until you've been settled there for a month or so, at least. Because you have to get to know the new neighborhood. You got to remember where you put things in this new place. And also, there's just the idea of home. A home is that place where we go and relax and sleep and have all our stuff. There's this almost inexpressible feeling we have about it. And so it's not going to be easy for anybody. So explaining to that adult child, it's a whole process, not just an event. And the sooner you can start, the better.
Of all the people I talk to, at the end of the interview, when I say, what one piece of advice would you have for our viewers and listeners? Almost all of them say, start planning early and start planning sooner.
It makes such a difference. It really does. And start having those conversations, plural. It's not the conversation, one and done. It's a
No.
series of conversations and talking through things and planning.
So what's the difference when someone says to you, well, we should do something, or, well, we're settled and we're fine. We don't need to do anything, but they do. So you
That they
talk
need
about,
help with the move. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, especially if they're thinking, well, she doesn't get, let's just say it's mom. Mom doesn't get a hold of her new apartment and assisted living for 2 months from now. So I'm thinking maybe 2 weeks beforehand, you come out and do the consultation. I say, we need to start now.
Oh, oh,
We can do last minute moves. That's a specialty of ours. We can do it. And it's a little more stressful on us, but again, it's our profession, so we know what to do. But it is so much more stressful on the family, and especially on the older adult. And I think you know this too, Valerie, that if there's any bit of dementia or what we call MCI, mild cognitive impairment, if a relocation isn't handled compassionately and carefully, that cognitive impairment can skyrocket, because suddenly the home that they were familiar with and that feeling we have about home, suddenly that's gone, and they don't know
it's
where things
fine.
are. They don't know where they are. They wake up in the morning and have no idea. So it's so upsetting. And so you want to handle it as gradually and carefully as you can. So that's, yeah, the more you can start ahead, the further you can start ahead of time, the better.
In your book, you talk about delicate conversations. What are conversation starters that the adult children can use to start to talk to their parents about downsizing or moving or decluttering? How do we begin those conversations without ruining our speaking terms?
Exactly. Having them shut us out.
Yes.
Well, here's the key thing. Let me give you an example of what I've heard from clients. Uh, let's talk about taking the car keys away. Talking about a
Oh,
very big thing to take away
that's
from
a big
somebody.
thing. That's a big thing.
So they'll say, my dad, he can't be driving now. I can't get him to stop driving. I said, well, have you had a conversation? Oh, good. Okay. Well, what did you say? I told him he can't drive anymore. It's too dangerous. I said, well, maybe there's another way to go about it. And here's what you need to remember. Your parents are full grown adults, and they remember you wearing diapers. So how can you possibly
Yes.
know better than, not only how can you possibly know better than they do, but also how dare you tell them what to do?
Yes. Yes.
They're on uneven ground. They know their bodies, their physical bodies, aren't as nearly cooperative as they used to be. That eyesight's getting worse, their reaction time. They know this. A key thing to recognize about this cohort of older adults, especially past 85, is that they were traumatized by two of the great tragedies of the last century, and that is the Great Depression and
Yes.
World War II. Even if they weren't aware or were born shortly after the end of World War II, their parents were completely traumatized. They couldn't help
Mhm.
but be traumatized by it. And
Right.
so, and they didn't talk things through the way we do now. And so
No.
they couldn't help but imprint that trauma on their kids. So their kids
Mhm.
learned two things that were very important. One, everything has value. Don't, that we could use that sometime. and they were not allowed to be a burden. So the idea that you're going to take away the car keys and now they're going to have to rely on somebody else to drive, there's pride involved. There's a lot of fear, a lot of frustration, because it's like, well, what if I just suddenly decide I want to go to Starbucks and get a cup of coffee? Well, now I
Right.
got to ask somebody and all that. So there's
Right.
so many different layers to it, but especially it really represents independence. So when you're talking to them about the idea of maybe they should move to assisted living, don't start there. Instead, really respect them, and maybe over the holidays or sometime when you're visiting them on vacation or whatever, and just find a nice quiet time and just say, I really want to know from you how you want to be living 10 years from now, or decline happens. Yeah, how do you want things to be? Because, think about it. If they have a good sense of humor, think about it. This is your chance to be in control when maybe you're not so in control, because you're going to tell me what you want. So you could
Right.
go
Yeah.
about it that way. Another thing is, and I've heard from many people, it's like, well, no, they shut down. They won't talk about it. Well, you need to be doing estate planning too. Maybe you have yours in place. Maybe you don't, because a lot of people don't. But start talking about it. Maybe shift the conversation and say to them, well, one of the reasons was curious about what you think about for your own life is that I'm really starting to plan now, because the kids are getting older and I'm getting older, and in this world anything can happen in a snap of your fingers.
We
So
certainly know that.
and so I'm thinking, well, what if something happens to me and I'm in a situation where my body isn't cooperating and I need to rely on people? What do I want? And so I'm kind of thinking this through. And if your game, I'd like to talk it through with you. Well, suddenly now they're the parent again, and they're in the advisor role, which they're much more comfortable being in. And so that's a way to kind of lean into it. It's like, what do you think of this? I mean, is that something you'd want, mom or dad? When you start talking about it that way, it's very respectful and compassionate. And you're being intimate with them. You're opening up and being vulnerable. So they might feel safer being that way with you.
Good idea. So I tried with my mom because, I'm out in the field and visiting assisted living communities. And so I would go home and say, Mom, I saw this great assisted living community today. They have this, this, and this, and it's kind of close to our house. Well, as soon as I'm gone, she calls my sister and says, Valerie wants to put me in a nursing home.
Oh, Lord. Yes.
I don't know how the conversation went, but I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So here's advice for another conversation. When you want to say, Mom, you have too much stuff, you need to start getting rid of some of this stuff. That conversation doesn't go very well either. So how can we handle
Oh.
that one better?
Well, again, remember what they've lived through and what was planted in them by the era they lived through. So keep that in mind. So maybe there's an area that it's blocking. For example, I've had adult children call me and say, you know what, my parents a hoarder, pardon me, it's a hoarding situation. Well, I get there for the consultation and the kitchen's fine, the living area where they watch TV is fine, their bedroom's fine, but the other rooms are just full of stuff because fatigue kicks in. And so one of the things, if that's kind of the case, and there's like a room full of stuff that nobody ever uses, you can say, "Hey, do you want me to help you tackle this? We can go through it. What's in here? If you don't mind." And again, always come from the point of view where you want to be helpful, but only if they want your help. And this is why it's so important to start way ahead of time, because then they can say no a few times, but then they kind of get used to the idea. Maybe they'll rethink it because you're not pushing it on them. Again, the minute you tell your parents what to do, they're not.
Oh,
Think of yourself as, when you were a teenager. Okay. Your parents tell you to do something, you're not going to do it. Well, it's
right,
kind
right.
of a little flipped right
Yeah,
now. A
yeah.
little bit. So,
It
so
abs yeah, yeah.
you want to be gentle and ask them what their favorite and most useful things are. So if you're starting with ahead of time,
That's a
you
nice
can start
idea.
saying, which of these photos are your favorites? Which ones do you really
Oh,
love? I'm curious. And
oh.
so you can start asking those kinds of questions. If you have if you start doing it ahead of time, getting a sense of their favorite things, what they use the most, that sort of thing.
That's a nice idea. That's a nice way to do it. What do you think are the top 3 mistakes that adult children make? And we've talked about a couple of them, I think, already.
Yeah.
and how could they avoid them?
Well, again, trying to think of things from your parents' point of view, it's all about empathy and compassion, being in the other person's shoes. Imagine yourself at 85 years old and things are, you think you got aches and pains now, wait till then. Hmm. And also that, don't forget the culture at large ignores you. Watch how, when you're out and about, watch how, say, waiters or people at the movies or whatever, how they kind of ignore older people. It's like we're invisible. Once upon a time, like when your parents were young, they revered their grandparents. They were taught to do that.
Mhm.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
So when you show them respect and really appreciate who they are and their age and let them know that, that's great. Now, at the same time, I know family issues, and I get it. Believe me, I get it. So it's a delicate dance, but the biggest error you can make is telling them what to do. The second biggest error I would say is assuming they will go with your timeline. And
Okay.
also not, and with one and that two, it goes with just not listening to them and getting their input. And well, actually, you know what? I take it back. I think the biggest mistake is waiting too long
Yeah.
to talk to them. I think that's the biggest issue, is waiting too long. With me, it was serendipitous. I happened to read an article in the New York Times. This is several years before my father passed away. The title of the article, I think, was "You Have to Talk to Your Parents About the Will."
Oh.
And my siblings and I, have some issues. Surprise! And I just knew I was very close to my dad, and I knew that when he passed away, that I'd really miss him. It would be awful, and I just wanted to know that things were set up right,
Oh.
so we wouldn't be fighting legally.
No.
So I waited when I was home visiting him at Buffalo. It was a chilly winter day. We were outside taking a walk in the neighborhood. And I had thought about, okay, where's he going to be coming from when I bring this up? I said, Dad, I don't care who gets what, but I just want to know that your will and everything else is all tied up with a with a ribbon, legally
Ribbon.
speaking, because I don't want to be fighting my siblings when I'm
Right.
grieving for you.
Of course.
And he just started talking. And almost like he was relieved to talk about it.
Oh. Because
And
you hadn't
it,
asked him.
yeah, and I think maybe he did. This is another thing to realize, that your parents may not, they're nervous about bringing it up with you. They're not sure how to talk about it with you, which is why it's really worth finding a way into these conversations and just saying, I know this is really uncomfortable to talk about. Believe me, I'm really uncomfortable. And just acknowledging those feelings, that this isn't easy. It's hard for both of you and very uncomfortable. But I will remember that conversation with him to the end as just remarkable.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. And I'm sure he was just glad that you brought it up so he didn't have to be wondering how to handle it with you.
Yeah, and he, on a later visit, he actually showed me where all his estate plan documents
Oh,
were, and the
that's
safe
nice.
deposit box key. And I would not have known where to look. None of us would. And
That's
so
nice.
I was really honored by that he trusted me with that. Yeah. Yeah.
When siblings strongly disagree, and we both know that they do, what is a tiebreaker or a decision protocol that you suggest? How do you suggest that families work through these issues? Because they have to,
They
right?
have
One way
to.
or the other.
And this is when working with professionals can really help. Since we're talking about my book and downsizing, let me kind of address things there.
Please.
The cool thing is, when you have basically a neutral third party, the senior move manager, the person you're working with, they're in the midst. There's it's really interesting. People tend to want to look good in front of a third party. So all that fighting you're doing behind the
Oh,
scenes, suddenly people are behaving a little bit better in front of the the professional. It could
oh,
be an
good
attorney
idea.
too. It could be an attorney, a care manager, whomever. So that's another reason I recommend hiring professionals for different things. If it's just the siblings kind of going to war, going into battle, just say, okay, let's Go away. If they're fighting over specific things, there are great ways. You can do a home inventory. You can. It's best, depending on how acrimonious it is. Like, let's go to the worst case scenario where
Okay.
siblings do not trust one another. You
Right.
do want to bring in a third party to document everything in the home. So
Okay.
do a full home inventory. And then
Okay.
you can start going through, and there are different methods of going about figuring out what would be an equitable way to divide everything. You can think of terms in financial value, but
Right.
frequently the stuff that people battle over the most is the worn out yellow cookbook that grandma had,
Really.
or the bronzed baby shoe from dad. That, of course, are they useful? No, but it's the sentiments attached to them, and then also how angry they may be at the other sibling. So if you can just, like, you have that home inventory, and then you can have rating systems for how much you want something, and so you can literally
Oh.
start to quantify it.
Oh.
And so on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you want this item? And this is where,
Oh.
spreadsheets can come in really handy. And AI can probably help you with those rankings too. But it's a little calmer if you do have somebody working, like a professional working with you to go through that and to kind of referee. But if it's just you and your siblings, or some other relative, or a step parent, let the data talk. Just make that home inventory, scale of 1 to 10. Sometimes there are ties, and then you can, like, flip a coin, or you can just do a second round.
But what a good idea.
And sometimes you have a sibling who won't compromise, in which case, especially if it gets down to
We
that,
do.
and there's usually, by that time, you're hopefully down to just a few items, then you can give them, here is 100 points. So assign a number of points. You only have 100, so you have to split them up between, let's just say, these 10 items.
Okay. All
So
right.
do you have to have this one item? Then give it 70 points, and everything else gets some portion of the remainder 30. So that's a great way too, where you really have to come down to the tiebreakers.
So let's flip the switch on,
All
flip
right.
it a little bit. So what do you wish that parents knew about their older children?
That they're scared too, and that talk to them about what you want your later life to look like, especially when you start needing care. Again, so long as you're lucky enough to live to that point, okay? Like, consider that lucky if you get to that point where you need care. What do you want that to look like? Talk it through with them, because since we live in the US and we have to pay for all of this, a lot of it almost all of it out of pocket, especially in home care and things like that. Because of that, you want to get a sense of the finances. So you want to make sure you know your own finances. And also, depending on your own finances, can your kids help out? Have these conversations now, as difficult as they are, because it's your way to have more control
Mhm.
over your life when the time comes and you need care, or when you're beyond care. If you've taxied down the runway and departed, when you're gone, you get to say who gets what. What is your legacy going to be? You get to determine that ahead of time, and legally document it. And it's also a way, I mean, when done with love, to really bring you closer to your kids in a
Mhm.
lovely way. And also, do recognize, though, especially if they have their own children and they have a full-time job, that there's a lot going on there. So again, you may not want to trust someone to come into your home. I get that, but you need to open yourself up to that, and trust your kids to help you find somebody who will really take good care of you.
Marty, you have a section in your book uh, that's the cleanse concept,
Yes.
and it ends with enjoy.
Hmm.
So, what
That
could cleanse be that actually ends with enjoy? Can you share that with us?
So the whole process, we use the cleanse concept at my company. C stands for concentrate in one room or area at a time. It's very easy to, you're working in the garage, but you find something that you go to the kitchen and then leave for the kitchen, and then other things leave you around the house, and you really don't see what you accomplish. So really just focus on that one area at a time. And then things that might need to go elsewhere, just, put them near the door. And then when you're done with that one area, then you can distribute them. L means localize things, localize items to where they're actually used. Uh, for example, one of my first clients, she was having issues with getting her bills paid. She was paying them, well, she was paying them on time, but all along her baseboards, there was about 6 inches of piled up paid bills and invoices lying there. So she was, it was in her bedroom, and she would pay them, sit on the edge of her bed, write the checks out, and watch TV. She said, I guess I should do this in the living room. And I said, the living room, honestly, Valerie, was its own issue. So
Yeah.
I thought
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I thought and I said, you already have this system. Let's just figure out how to kind of close the loop here. So keep doing it in your bedroom. That's where you're used to doing it. Keep doing it there. And we'll just get a cute little file cabinet, a little file rack file that has the ones you need to pay, and then folders for each different category that you're paying. And so we set that up easy enough. And I checked in with her about a month or so later, and she was so happy because she was still doing it where she usually did it. And so, we didn't move it somewhere. And then the first E in cleanse is, no surprise, eliminate. Eliminate things you don't use anymore. And keep in mind that items are meant to be used. They were created to be of use. I'm anthropomorphizing them a little bit, but think of it that way. If they had feelings and they're lying there and they've been stuck in your attic for 10 years, they're like, use me. I want to be used. So in other words, if you're not using something or enjoying it in some way, find a way to let it be used, give it away, sell it. If it's severely compromised, bid it farewell and let it kind of just biodegrade in the trash. Hopefully it'll biodegrade. But yes, eliminate. A, it stands for assign categories, allot labels. That's what A stands for. So you want to categorize things. You want to store, in the trade we say, you want to store like with like. Because then that's the area where all the dental stuff is. That's where all my fasteners, paper clips, rubber bands, things like that. That's where the office supplies are. So when you're looking for something, you know where to get it. And then when you're done with it, and this is key, you put it away so you can find it the next time. And that way you don't overbuy just because you can't find something. And this is in the book, actually. We once worked with a client. She had, honestly, when we'd finished going through her whole place, we had on the bathroom counter, it was covered with different tubes and whatever of preparation H, at least a third of which were expired because she kept buying more. She didn't know where it was. So that's an extreme example. But so that's A. And then N is note which items need special handling, like hazardous waste, shredding. Shred anything with I would shred anything with anybody's social security number, whether they're still here or not. Just shred anything with a social security number, among other things. And then S is learn these new methods and use this so you can sustain your new organization and your new clean and cluttered home. And then the E, as you said, is enjoy. Cleanse.
It is. Because now your life is all organized and it's all cleaned up, right?
Yeah. And you know what? It'll get a little messy. But the thing is, now you know what to do. Like, believe me, I clutter up my coffee table and other areas, and it gets to the point where it's like, that's just too much visual static. And so then I just use my own methods, and we're good.
Yes. Well, as I said, we're going through this at our house, and you're exactly right. We went through things in our bathroom, plastic containers underneath my sink, and I was appalled at the duplicates of things that I had bought new because I didn't know I had them already there. So that's a good hint for anybody. You don't have to be older to do that. We all should be looking at what we've got underneath our cabinets. Right?
Oh, absolutely. And also, don't ever be ashamed. Things pile up, and every single person's life these days is just maxed out.
It is.
So don't beat yourself up, and work in small increments. Pick an increment of time or of space. For example, using just an hour on a Saturday. Put it in the calendar, even tell a friend you're going to do it so that you kind of, and that you're going to call them or text them after you finish, just so you have a little accountability built in. And before you start, turn on some really fun music that you love that makes you move. Have a little yummy something standing by, because you want to train your brain to think of this as it's fun, like you feel good doing it. Because after you're done, after an hour, you're going to see what you've accomplished in that hour, and you're going to get that dopamine hit of accomplishment. So you build all this in. But the thing is, you do it for an hour in one place, and then you're done. Your session's done. So schedule that next hour. And you keep doing an hour every weekend, you're going to be amazed what you've got done in a month or 6 weeks. It's incredible. Another way to do it, though, is to pick an increment of space. So, for example, pick a drawer, pick a cabinet, pick, 5 feet of your closet rung, and mark it off. And so when you're done with that space, your session's done. So, and it's same thing though, play that music, make it fun for yourself, something you'll learn to look forward to.
And I, for one, have a very short attention span.
You and me both.
When we're talking this big of a section in my closet, right? And an hour is way too long for me, and I can't handle that long.
Do 20 minutes, do half an hour, whatever works for you. People too often think they have to do it the whole day. No, you don't. You don't have to.
One of the things I want to point out, Marty, is about your book is all the charts and checklists that you have, which are really helpful for people. Here, for example, is a downsizing checklist, several pages that people can use and copy. And there are several of those. So I just want people to know that. And also you have some little tips that are called Inside Scoop. So
yeah,
that tell us about what you want people to get out of that.
The Inside Scoops is kind of like from all the work I've done and my amazing colleagues in my company have done over the years, little tricks we've picked up that can be really useful. And then I also have moving moments in there, just these really amazing stories of working with clients that I will never forget. I mean, we worked with so many clients. There are just some that just nestle inside your heart that are just, so if I think of something now, again, more goosebumps. Oh my goodness. And that, in terms of the checklists and things like this, they are in the book, so you can scribble in the book. Also, at the end of the book, I give a long URL, a long link where you can actually also go find PDFs of those checklists online. You can download them.
Oh, good.
So, but scribble away in the book. Don't worry about keeping how to move your mom and still be on speaking terms pretty. Use it. It's meant to be used.
Yes. And at some point she won't be there anymore, and that'll be the end of it anyway. So it's good. It's good to use it during that process, right?
Yeah.
So speaking of stories, give us your favorite or a favorite one that comes to mind before and after story of how your work really impacted a family.
There's so many. The one that really just leapt to mind, it was a hoarding situation. And we got the call from the daughter, and she had managed to, and her mother was a widow, and her mother had 6 storage units in addition to her home. The daughter had got her down from 18 storage units to 6. And the mother still didn't want to bring in outside professionals, but her daughter had persuaded her to do a consultation with me and to let me in the carport. So maybe she'd let us work in the carport. And the daughter also mentioned 2 cars that had been parked on the street forever, and how they had so many things in them. So I remember meeting with her and her mother, and just talking things through. And one of the key things with hoarding situations is the people who live in these situations and have built them, they by and large know what's going on, and they've been judged. They've had people fight with them, and there's a reason why they have every single thing, whatever that may be, and why they don't want to let it go. So a big part of what you have to do when you're working with them is just to build trust and let them know you're not judging them at all, and that you're not going to toss anything out or tell them what to toss out or anything. You realize that they are people with feelings, and they really have strong feelings about their stuff. So To give you an idea of kind of this, how her mother's brain worked, all of our brains are so different. And there is something officially called hoarding disorder, a psychiatric disorder. And it has to do with executive function in the brain, how people organize their thoughts and decisions and things. And it's just built differently. That's how I explain it to people. It's just built differently. Like for me, my brain's built differently because I, never trust my sense of direction ever. Don't ever trust it because that part of my brain isn't built very well. It's not very sturdy. So that's the thing with people in a hoarding situation. And so when I met with this daughter and mom, we were looking through the carport. I could tell the mom was feeling okay about me. And then I did want to check in about these cars on the street. The tires were flat. You could tell, that weird sheen the chassis gets after it's been out way too long, just sitting there. And I could see that there was a lot of magazines and newspapers and everything like that in there. And so as I'm approaching the cars, I said, "Oh, I see that there's some stuff in the cars here. Do you want us to kind of work with you on that too?" She said, "Oh, there's nothing in there." We have to realize that again, in the trade, we call it clutter blindness, where people can't even
Oh,
perceive.
oh,
They really can't see it. And so I said to her, "Well, I see a few magazines in here. Do you want us to deal with that?" She's like, "Well, yeah, I guess you can." So this is how we began with her. Now, thankfully, she trusted us with the carport, got through the carport. She let us in the house to start working in the house. And let me tell you, it's a 1 to 5 hoarding scale. This was a 5 plus.
oh.
The electricity was jury rigged. The plumbing didn't work. Going up and down the stairs, they moved. And there was what you've seen on TV and in photos, the hoarder's nest, where they
Yeah,
sleep and eat and do everything. I
yeah.
remember turning to my project manager and saying, "Where do you think she goes to the bathroom?" He said, "Oh, I hadn't thought of that."
Ah,
So this is how bad it was, and how recalcitrant the mom was. She really didn't want anybody in. Well, by the end of and we worked for months with her, and by the time toward the end, she didn't even feel like she needed to be there. She trusted us so
oh,
much to make respectful decisions on her behalf. And a month or two after we'd finished, I got this beautiful email from the daughter saying, "You've transformed the life of our whole family."
oh,
Because I got my mom back and my kids got the grandmother back. And she's so much happier and freer. And when you get to transform a family's life to the point where they actually express that to you, it's just remarkable. One of my project managers just got a text like a few weeks ago, from someone she'd worked with a year ago who had built a hoarding situation. And oh, the text was amazing. She said, "1 year ago, you saved my life."
oh my.
And then she went on, and it was just, it was something like, you know, all I have to give is to say thank you. And so I thank you 1,000 times. It was so moving
Oh,
when you can do that for someone. Ugh, talking about going home at the end of the day and feeling like, okay, that was a good day.
yes,
I
yes,
did something for
absolutely.
somebody.
That is lovely. That's
Yeah.
lovely. And so tell us what's next for you. What do you hope to do with your business and your life? You're starting your alliance. Is that what you're calling it? The Age-Well
Age-wise
Alliance.
alliance. Age-wise alliance was born because, mind you, we have to go back a few years when I first thought of it. I was thinking people don't know senior move managers exist, and this is so frustrating. How do we let them know? And then I was thinking about all the other services that are out there, patient advocates, the different kinds of attorneys, probate versus elder abuse, financial advisors who specialize in working with people in later life situations, all geriatric care managers who are also called aging life care specialists. No one knows these exist. And so that's how Age-Wise Alliance was born. And now, because later life doesn't come with instructions, that's
No.
what Age-Wise Alliance is there for. It provides for older adults and their families a personalized guide, the right professionals, and a private family forum where they can all make decisions together.
Oh, that's nice.
Now it's in beta testing phase. I mean, if you're interested, you can contact me at info@clearhomesolutions.com and I'll get back
I
in
would
touch
love
with
to.
you.
Yes, of
But we're
course.
getting there. Now, in terms of writing books, I'm realizing I need to write a companion guide to how to move your parents and still be on speaking terms. I have to do it from the parents' point of view now. How do you let your kids help you? I don't have a title
Yeah.
yet, but I'm working on the outline, so we'll get there. And then after that, I want to write a book about solo aging, like solo swagger, aging the way you want to, like taking on later life rather than thinking of as a time to dread. Oh my goodness. I don't know about you, Valerie. I I wouldn't want to be younger for anything. Every year brings more wisdom and more of a sense of wonder about the world. It's amazing, right? And the level of confidence just keeps growing. It's great.
Yes. Yes, and I think what's exciting is that we get to live older now, right?
Yeah.
No, we're not old, we're not elderly, we're
Uh-uh.
not seniors, and there are so many opportunities available for older people because there are so many of us, first of all,
Hmm.
right? And because
Yeah.
of internet and AI, we can work from a
Oh,
cruise ship, we can go across the world and still work and do something. We can write books, we can do start new businesses. I started this, just a couple years ago at my age. So yes, there's great opportunities, and I think that that's really important for everyone to recognize. And that in itself is something that you and I need to bring to the world: is to be aware, to open your eyes, and to be aware of what we have as resources here in our older adults, and to make sure that we use them also.
so much we can take on. We get to live lives of courage.
Yes,
It's
yes,
wonderful.
yes. Well, we'll have to do some things together.
I would
That'd
love
be
that,
We'd
Valerie.
love
I
to do
would love
that
that.
with our Always Ageless brand that we're just building as well.
The great
Marty,
name.
it's been a delight having you. As I said, I I might have been one of your first book purchasers. I don't know, but I certainly bought it a few months ago, so I was there at that time, and I'm
I'm
so
honored.
glad to have you here. Thank you for being on our show on Always Ageless and sharing your stories with us. I know that I'll be seeing you again in some other places, and I know that our viewers and our listeners are so grateful for your insights that you brought today. So tell everyone, and we're going to put it on the bottom of the screen, but tell everyone how they can find you and how's the best way to reach you if they'd like to take advantage of your services.
You are so wonderful. First of all, thank you so much for this honor and this amazing
Oh,
opportunity to
uh,
not only share ideas with your listeners, but also just to get to talk to you, Valerie. You're
oh,
amazing. So if you'd like to contact me, you can certainly go to our website, clearhomesolutions.com. You can also check out agewisealliance.com and look at that glossary of professions. And if you're in Southern California, there are a bunch of professionals who are already a part of our circle of professionals. So you can get to know them. Obviously, there's the book, How to Move Your Parents and Still
yes.
Be on Speaking Terms. And so you can contact us through the website. There are contact forms there. You can give us a call. The number's there. And so, yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with me. And of course, there's all kinds of links and information too that I know. Thank you so much, Valerie, that you'll have on your website.
And we'll allow our listeners and viewers to find you. We'll help them also. Thank you,
Thank
Marty,
you.
very, very much for being on Always Ageless. And we look forward to seeing you in other places. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you.